with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we return to this very, very, very important subject, which is constantly growing in importance, the war on Iran. And this is our third comment on the war on Iran. And today's comment is entitled War on Iran, the Nuclear Option. And we want to begin by holding the view, explaining to you that we believe that this war was planned long, long, long ago in advance. And there are many things which have occurred in international affairs which are linked to this war, which was planned in advance. The new American government, which is like an unguided missile, an erratic missile, firing off here, there, skelter everywhere, has a certain design and plan behind this erratic behavior. The change in policy of the American government from Biden to Trump is connected with this war in Iran, namely an accommodating view towards Russia, and therefore towards Russia's oil and Russia's gas and Russia's fertilizers. The American government did not perceive the Ukraine-Russian war to be so important as to stand in the way of Israel's interests. And then there was the war in Venezuela. It was not essentially to bring about regime change in Venezuela. I was deceived. I was deceived, yes. And the whole world was deceived. No. They didn't want so much regime change in Venezuela. They wanted control over Venezuela's oil because they knew what was coming up in the future when the war takes place on Iran. The war on Iran was not only planned in advance, but there was a basic objective that they seek to achieve. And I have mentioned already, number one, the removal of the nuclear threat, that Iran is not allowed to become a nuclear power. And number two, and more importantly, is how to advance the agenda for the establishment of Pax Judaica. Now I want today in this third session to expand on what I have done before in order to provoke my students to think. And the problem is that so many of them are now thinking, and they are writing essays and writing books, and all these essays and books are coming to me. Yes, and I don't have time to read even only small emails, short emails I can read. I can't read all these long emails and all these long books, so I have to disappoint them. But it's a good sign. It's a wonderful sign. It's a repudiation of the model of scholarship of the Darul Uloom that we now have so many thinkers amongst us. That's a good sign. I am happy that my seeds that I've been planting now are showing fruits growing up. Yes, mashallah. So now then, in order to ensure that Iran never becomes a nuclear armed state, I believe, I hope I am wrong, but I believe that a bombing of nuclear plants and bombing of military sites on Iran from the sky will not be enough to ensure that Iran would never become a nuclear-powered state. I am suspecting now that eventually the United States is going to land troops in Iran. That is why so many ships are moving towards Iran with large contingents of soldiers. Yeah. But in addition to a land invasion of Iran to seek to take control of the neck to choke Iran into submission. I believe, I hope I'm wrong, I believe that the United States is going to use nuclear weapons in order to bomb the nuclear sites to ensure that the nuclear fuel, which is buried underneath the earth, can never be retrieved. In the event that the United States uses nuclear weapons against Iran, then it becomes impossible, I believe I'm correct, for Iran to continue as a member state of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And that Iran will then proceed towards becoming a nuclear armed state. We have been saying this to Iran for 15 years or more now, and they've never listened to us. They've always been comfortable with the fatwa given, I believe, by Imam Khomeini, rahimahullah. And we have respect for the fatwa. It shows a lot of moral rectitude in that fatwa. We don't despise the fatwa at all. No. It shows a sense of moral excellence in that fatwa. But we turn to the Quran and to Surah Al-Anfal, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ أَعِدُّ لَهُم مَّا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ وَمِن رِبَاطِ الْخَيْلِ تُرْهِبُونَ بِهِ عَدُوَّ اللَّهِ وَعَدُوَّكُمْ. That you must build power to the maximum extent that you can possibly build it, in order that your power might function as a deterrent, not as an aggressor, not to challenge and to attack and to pose a threat to others, not at all. You are acquiring a nuclear power in order to protect yourself, to be a deterrent. The United States is a nuclear power, but nobody seems to be bothered about criticizing the United States for that. Russia is a nuclear power. China is a nuclear power. Nobody criticizes Russia and China for being a nuclear power. France is a nuclear power. Britain is a nuclear power. Nobody criticizes France and Britain for being nuclear powers. India and Pakistan and Korea are nuclear powers. Nobody criticizes them, except Korea, of course. They can't manage it. But nobody criticizes India as a nuclear power and China and Pakistan as a nuclear power. So why is it that you put all of your criticisms and all your objections against Iran? No, it doesn't make sense, and there's no need for Iran to bother about those who are opposing it. And I hope and I pray that good sense will prevail and Iran will accept this interpretation or explanation of the Quran in the days which lie ahead of us. In the event that nuclear weapons are not used, already there is sufficient justification for Iran to get out of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, exit it. But if a nuclear weapon is used, then the Iranian people will demand and demand and demand of the government and of the Rahbar. There's nothing they can do. They have to accept, because that will be the demand of the Iranian people. If a nuclear weapon is ever used against Iran, Iran will automatically be exiting from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and the blame for that will be Trump. Will Iran be able to acquire nuclear weapons without a nuclear plant and all these things? Answer: they are friends in the world. I need not say anymore. They're friends in the world. That's all I need to say. Now then, if a land invasion of Iran takes place, then American soldiers are going to be killed. The method of military strategy adopted by Trump and the American government at this time is called hit and run. Hit and run. But hit and run requires you to be there on the ground for only a brief period of time and then fly out. But you cannot take control of any of the islands in the Gulf of Hormuz without a ground invasion, and then the troops have to remain there to control it. And that involves risk of life, and there'll be many, many Americans who will die. And the Americans are going to ask themselves, why are we dying for Israel's sake? There's going to be a backlash against Trump and against his government in the United States of America. And we already see that backlash has already begun. And so a ground invasion of the islands in the Gulf of Hormuz is going to cost the Americans a very high price in terms of domestic repercussions. And there's also the embarrassment that Iran might succeed in inflicting such horrendous punishments, such horrendous damage and destruction upon American troops, that this aura of invincibility will be shattered. Shattered. And so we are looking forward to a future which is perilous. And we are looking forward to see this erratic, unguided missile, which has now become the United States of America, taking itself to its own destruction. I don't need to speak more on the subject because there are other things I want to talk about. If, as I have said in my last comment, the war on Iran is meant to also advance the agenda of Pax Judaica, then the planning of this war must involve something connected with oil and connected with gas. Because our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, he prophesied. This is what he said. Hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, the Sahih Muslim. He says that the river Euphrates will uncover a mountain of gold. Gold is a metal. Gold is not liquid, it's solid, a metal. And a mountain is something that rises high up in the sky, not something you can put in a wheelbarrow. That's not a mountain. So the river Euphrates will uncover a mountain of gold. And he went on to say that people will fight for that gold. And 99 out of every 100 who fight as combatants would be killed. And everyone who is fighting will say, I will be the one who will survive. But the believers must not touch that gold. Long years ago, I don't know how long, 20, 30, 40 years ago, I offered an interpretation of this hadith, and as usual, it's so commonplace now. Nobody bothered. The world of Islamic scholarship just ignored me, and they still continue to do that. I believe they'll continue to do that until I die. They will never change. I offered an interpretation of this hadith. I said, when the Prophet spoke about a mountain of gold, he was actually speaking about an ocean of oil which will one day function as a mountain of gold. Everybody knows this is my interpretation. Nobody else has ever interpreted the hadith like this. And this was my interpretation and completely ignored all these years. I said that that prophecy was fulfilled when in 1973 the war took place between Israel and the Arabs. And King Faisal of Saudi Arabia, rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy on his soul. He was a good man who in the end of his life came to the right path. He imposed an oil boycott on the United States of America. And the price of oil rose by 400%, from $3 a barrel to $12 a barrel. The United States knew that this was going to happen before the war took place, and they wanted it to happen. Because before the war took place, 2 years prior to that, the US dollar was in peril because France under Charles de Gaulle showed more sense than all the muftis of Islam. Charles de Gaulle stood up in the French National Assembly. They should teach this in the Darul Uloom. He stood up in the French National Assembly in 1966 and he denounced the Bretton Woods Accords and the IMF as being unfair. It was favoring the United States of America and the US dollar. And he rubbished this monetary system. And because the IMF had a provision that US dollars could be redeemed by central banks at the rate of 35 US dollars for 1 ounce of gold, but nobody ever did it. Nobody ever redeemed the dollars. De Gaulle said, I want the gold. And the French government was sending US dollars to Washington to get the gold. And they went on, attacked de Gaulle to get regime change, and as usual, they succeeded. And de Gaulle resigned. But the new French government continued the policies. And by 1971, the writing was on the wall when the French government demanded, I think it was $3 billion worth of gold. And Nixon caught cold feet because the United States had done, which if I had done it, they'd put me in jail. It's fraud. It's called fraud. You printed more dollars than you had gold. And that's called fraud. But when a government does it, who can send the government to jail? So when France in 1971 demanded the gold for $3 billion US, Nixon went to Camp David as usual for the weekend and then declared, we gave our word, but we don't have to keep our word. That is modern Western civilization. Allah says in the Quran, when you give your word, you must keep your word. When Russia gives her word, Russia keeps her word. So when Nixon said, we gave our word, but we don't have to keep our word. We gave our word, we gave our obligation under international law that the United States would redeem dollars for gold for central banks at $35 an ounce. But we are not going to do that anymore. Answer? Nobody can stop you. Nobody can quarrel. The United States is ruling the world. And so since 1971, after the United States reneged on its obligation under international law to redeem dollars for gold, the US dollar was in a place called no man's land. It could collapse at any time. Is anyone teaching this subject to the students in the Darul Uloom? Huh? So what to do? This was when Henry Kissinger pulled out the most brilliant and diabolically brilliant rabbit out of the hat. 2 years after 1971, the war took place. And when the price of oil rose from $3 to $12 a barrel, then Nixon went to Faisal in Saudi Arabia. And because Faisal didn't have more than peanuts in his head at that time, Nixon said to him, you're getting 4 times more money than you were getting before. You have a 400% increase of your income because the price of oil had gone up to $12 a barrel. And the price of gold from $40 went to $160. Now then, Nixon said to Faisal, and he was correct. He says, if you listen to me, you're going to get far more than that. You'll become richer and richer and richer. All that you have to do, and in return, if you do that, we will guarantee your security, is that you have to sell your oil for only US dollars. If you agree to that, then there will be a permanent demand for the US dollar, and then the US dollar will fly high. And this was haram. Yes, this was totally haram. But Faisal fell for it, and that's how the petrodollar was born. And now then, we now see a second way of looking at that hadith. And that is that the fight for the petrodollar monetary system is going along one track with the emergence of BRICS. But there's another track now which has been opened, which I never expected, with the war on Iran. I hope I'm wrong, but it appears to me that what Iran and what the United States and Israel want is that they want to see the destruction of all the oil facilities in the Gulf, destruction of Saudi Arabia's capacity to export oil, destruction of Kuwait, destruction of Qatar and their gas, destruction of United Arab Emirates, that none of them in the Gulf would be able to export any oil anymore because all their oil installations are gone up in smoke. But who will destroy them? The United States can't do that. Israel can't do that because ostensibly we are friends with you. Saudi Arabia and Israel is not only friends, they're sisters. But Israel and the United States, in the language of Sergei Lavrov, who's showing excellent insight, the Russian foreign minister is showing excellent insight, basar. He says that the United States has set up the Arab states. That's right. He used the right language. They are externally friends with the Arabs. Internally, they are backstabbing them. They want to destroy the Arabs' capacity to earn money from oil. And they want Iran to do it. So the more they punish Iran, the more they destroy Iran, the more they can cause Iran to respond vigorously, the more likely it is that Iran will destroy all the oil installations in the Gulf and in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if I'm right or wrong in my thinking, but I'm just sharing with you. There is a future coming, well, another week, 2 weeks, another month, 2 months, and we'll soon know whether I'm right or wrong. If this is the plan, and if Iran is invaded with ground troops and so on, and Iran then lashes out, and Iran has the weapons, and if Iran is short of weapons, there are friends who can supply more weapons and even more powerful weapons to Iran. Iran will not be in short supply of weapons at all. And if Iran does succeed in destroying all the oil facilities and in blocking the Straits of Hormuz permanently, then the world oil economy is going to change. The Arabs are no longer going to have that wealth that they have. And when they have lost their wealth, whatever independence they had, any semblance of independence will vanish. And they'll become what the Palestinians are today, slaves. And this will be advancing Israel interests. Israel has to fulfill what is in the Torah. Pax Judaica cannot be achieved unless you fulfill what is in the Torah. And the Torah makes it plain that Israel has to become a ruling state. And for that, if you have control over oil in the world, then you have the world by your neck, by the neck. And that's why they don't want to block Russia's oil, and they want to take control of Venezuela's oil. Because once the oil of the Arab Gulf and Iran vanishes, is no longer available for export, it is these countries will be able to help to keep the price of oil reasonable, within reach. And the United States is a major producer of oil and gas. So the United States will come out of this war with a more powerful control over the energy of the world. And that's why they're maintaining an accommodating relationship with Russia. But Russia understands. Russia is no longer an innocent child. Russia understands. Now then, the frontiers of the state of Israel, as located in the Torah, is that the Holy Land extends from the river of Egypt, which of course is the river Nile. Every schoolboy knows that, to the river Euphrates, where all the oil is located. So if this is the territorial frontiers of the Holy Land, the Pax Judaica cannot be achieved until Israel launches a ground invasion to take control of all of this territory. Before that, you can control the territory by indirect means, but eventually you want direct control over this territory. And by destroying all the oil facilities in the Gulf and reducing the Arab world to poverty once again, as they were before oil came, it will facilitate Israel in its agenda to achieve Pax today. I believe I've said enough for today's session. There's some criticism. I'm not speaking too long. I'm not giving enough. And others are criticized me for speaking too long. In our next session, we hope by that time we'll see what is happening in the war in Iran. But I need to address the subject of the danger of this war provoking Sunni Shia civil war in the house of Islam. We pray that Allah might protect us from that. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.